Welcome, friends. Welcome. This is going to be Battletech, A Time of Total Warfare, Game Master's Prep. We're going to be looking at Season 4, Episode 29, I think is the next one, which is the 92nd episode. We'll be doing prep at that point. You should know that everything that's about to happen is going to be spoilers. My intent, if I can rally up enough juice inside, is to do all the planning for the rest of the season. Some of that will be easy, some of it will be harder. So it's pretty clear in episode 28 that these Clan Novacat Crusader forces are going to get swept up pretty easily, unless there's like a lucky headshot or cockpit destruction or something along those lines. There's really no end threat. So we need to talk about what comes after. The first thing that's going to happen is someone new comes to take over the unit in order to step Season 4 away from having to micromanage the unit, giving away experience points, that kind of stuff. The party needs someone else to take command. Clearly, in-game, Bandito has shown he's not really the best candidate for this kind of thing. So, I figured we would get someone who isn't very good at ground control to do it. So this guy is going to be a former brigadier general. He is a Shosa, which I believe is the correct terminology. That's, I don't know what these searches are. Shosa is, that's not right. All right, I need to go to the right table. Down here, show. Where? So this is going to be a Draconis Combine officer. I'm choosing that because they're fighting on the edge of the Draconis Combine, so it'd be easiest to hire a retiring Draconis Combine officer. So this guy is 62 years old. He is being dismissed from the DCMS Admiralty. His job is delivering warship test platforms across Combine. So he has a high rank, but what he mainly does is take charge of the new warship program. He takes charge of the testing platforms and moves them from one location to another. Obviously there's a lot of confidentiality, there's a lot of logistics involved in that, but this guy has not, what's the terminology I'm looking for? He's only piloted a desk for the last 20 years. So he's not a stellar mercenary commander, but he is qualified to take control of the battalion. It's actually a little light for him. My hope is that if we do Season 5, which is by no means assured at this point, we're just looking to get Season 4 done. If we do Season 5, this person will still be in command as the battalion expands out to a regimental size. So let's look at names for a good Draconis Combine officer. Show. I think he's gonna be an old, silver-haired samurai, top knot, very formal, but he's a chill dude. So I want to make it clear here: the show is going to show up and talk about team spirit and not changing the culture of the unit as it is, and that he's looking to integrate, and that everyone should be upholding the values of the unit so far. Now, how much of that is bullshit and how much of that is something he's actually going to do are two different things. But he is an aerospace officer, and aerospace officers have not traditionally done well in this unit. What else can I say about this person? We still need a name. Oda? will be his last name. Because I'm gonna base him off of Nobunaga. Easy to recall, but still very old sounding, but short, something that's not going to confuse the cast too much. First name. Can't believe this is the thing that's going to hold me up here. Eto. No. Akira is very easy to go to. Oda Akira. The actual in English, his rank would be Shosho Akira Oda. You would have been a good one if I hadn't already settled on Akira. Alright, so now we got this guy. His job is to shake things up. He's going to rely on offloading paperwork to our good major and generally trying to uphold the status quo. The unit is probably going to treat him scandalously. They don't have a lot of Draconis Combine members. They're Lyran Alliance mercenaries, so the Draconis Combine, pretty much until the clans came, was their go-to punching bag. More importantly, they did perform that secret raid, specifically on the Draconis Combine Admiralty in Season 2 or 3. Right, the one that they ripped off resupply unit before it shipped to the clan front lines. Alright, so next thing we need, if you are not down on Battletech's storyline, the unit is going to reform on Richmond, where they will be picking up pilots and an additional jump ship and a drop ship. And they will be setting out in the 20 jump ship formation known as Task Force Bulldog. So what happens is Victor Steiner Davian, who is leading Task Force Bulldog, he notices all across Task Force Bulldog's 5 waves that the Smoke Jaguars are getting absolutely shit canned. For the first time in history, the Smoke Jaguars are retreating. Not just tactically, but strategically, they're removing themselves from the theater. And so he realizes there's a really big problem. The Star League Defense Force sent Task Force Serpent a couple of months ago. So Task Force Serpent is this gigantic fleet group of basically the best the Inner has to offer, and the Capellians send some sort of shit dogs called, like, I don't know. Anyway, so the Capellians send like some losers. Everybody else sends their best. They get up in a giant fleet and they vanish from sight. So Comstar continues to report on their movements falsely. Comstar says things like they're here or they're over here or they're training or, you know, they're going beyond the periphery, but actually they form a giant convoy and travel back into clan space. So they have received the secret location back to the clan homeworlds, and they're going to launch a raid on the Smoke Jaguar homeworld of a Huntress. So here's the thing, the Smoke Jaguars are getting their asses kicked by Serpent at this time, but all of the Smoke Jaguars are retreating from the inner sphere's invasion corridor. So now the problem is that these people could return home and start combat drops on Serpent. So not only do they not have any idea what happens to Task Force Serpent, because this group is spending a whole year with no way to communicate back to the inner sphere. Communication is impossible. But even if they did make it there, now they're going to have even more forces picking up from behind. There's a galaxy commander by the name of Hong Meta who basically vows to return back to Huntress and burn the inner sphere there to the ground. So this is a big problem. So Victor gathers up the remnants of Bulldog. He finds any unit that has its own jump ship transportation and is sufficiently intact and says, guess what? We're activating the secondary part of your contracts. If you're a mercenary or you have been signed off to the Star League Defense Forces and your commanding ruler has agreed, we're taking everything we've got and we're going to Huntress to reinforce Task Force Serpent. So he has to explain Task Force Serpent, then he has to tell everybody you can't talk to anyone for at least 9 months. That's how long it's going to take to get to Huntress. Then once we get to Huntress, we might have to invade a planet, because Serpent might already be dead or might never have arrived, or Serpent could be fine, and then we're going to do something called the Great Refusal. That's where, after wiping out the Smoke Jaguars, Victor's plan is to go to the clan homeworld of Stranamakti and basically tell them to fuck off and engage them in ritualized combat to once and for all end the threat of the clans. So the party is going to be swept up into this, and we're going to have a whole, probably half of the next episode will be explaining all of that, and then we're going to have whatever time remains plus an entire episode of role-playing 9 months in space. So there's probably going to be a lot of small events, agitation, TDS, and McGurk. We're going to have more comics and movies from the Silver Winged Raven Corporation, who are going to be setting up. We'll talk about what it'll be like for Bandito. He'll retain his position as executive officer of the unit, but he'll be given direct command of the first company permanently as a sort of special forces unit. So the first company, which is what's currently on the field, is going to be some aerospace. Second LAM pilot. So they're going to have 2 LAMs, the experimental Puka style LAM, and then another LAM, and more aerospace fighters will be joining the unit on other dropships. We've of course got Pavel Ridzik, we've got Rapier, who's probably going to be up to some hijinks. I don't really know. And we need Billy Wyndham in the 4th. He is going to be drawing up plans for future mech builds and specifically readjusting the ranch hand. So I'd like to say that I could come up with stuff for Rad, but he comes up with some crazy fucking builds. So I don't want to offer him anything. I want him to tell me what he thinks a mech needs. And maybe we'll readjust it from there. I almost feel like the Centurion could use like an axe or something. We can make it real bad. Real bad boy. I don't know what other small... We have to fill a whole episode with this stuff. And we have to cover 9 months of travel. Essentially spending the whole time in dropship transit. That's pretty big. If you have any thoughts, live viewers, consider dropping something on me. Let me know. After that, we're going to get to what's going to be the final fight, but not the final episode, called Duane's Swamps. Now, let me see if I can transfer between these pretty easily. Well, that exists. It's just not the right size. That's not what I wanted either. Yeah, there's not going to be any mech battles in space, unfortunately. All right, so this is the planet Huntress. This is where they're going. This is, I mean, this map was made in like not great time. Battletech's history. The art is not so good. So, this map doesn't have any labels on it, so I have to kind of guess what's happening. When they get to Huntress, there's going to be two pretty big deals. This is the capital, Lutera. It has a giant smoked jaguar carved into the side of the mountain, kind of like that thing in Atlanta or near Georgia, where they have the giant stone carved edifices, or Mount Rushmore, something like that. So the Northern Army group of Task Force Serpent. All right, let me start. Task Force Serpent splits into two groups, Northern Army and Southern Army. Both of them are getting their ass kicked. When Task Force Bulldog arrives, Serpent has been split up. The Northern group ends up in the Duan Mountains and essentially is fighting backwards uphill. They're constantly being overrun. They have these cool ninja teams with tag launchers that, like, one guy with the tag launcher takes out 4 mechs, but then his whole team is pretty much annihilated. And I think they break his leg. The head of the Northern Army group is also the head of the whole army. Right at the moment that Task Force Bulldog arrives, she dies, and 10 minutes later they make contact with the Serpent worship in orbit. Commodore Bear 6, Invisible Truth. So the first thing that's going to happen for the players is that they're going to hear there's a warship over the planet and this is really bad. And then a few minutes later, they're going to hear, it's, you know, we have confirmation it's the Invisible Truth. Serpent is alive, but they're not doing well. There's a 10-day drop time, even at assault speeds, to Huntress, because it's quite far away from its sun. So now we have this problem. The Northern Army group is basically completely fucked. The Smoke Jaguars on planet realize that this is their last gasp. Their genetic repository, where new warriors are made and born and trained, has been taken and almost looted by the Inner Sphere. All their command center has been blown up. They're out of warriors. They basically offer pretty much anybody that could be qualified to get into a mech a chance to get into a mech and form a unit called the Jaguar's Heart. The commander of the planetary forces, Russo Hal, stops drinking, which is a big deal because in the books he is a unrepentant alcoholic, and starts leading a guerrilla insurgency force, and this is going to last for years. Russo Hal becomes a ghost. So we're going to talk about Southern Army Force. They are the Northwind Highlanders. They're a pretty famous mercenary unit. There's some other groups up in there as well. I think Knights of the Inner Sphere is in there. They fall back through a swamp, which works out pretty well for them at first, and then they start getting ambushed consistently by the Jaguars, who don't give a shit anymore and are pushing their pilots and their mechs to the maximum limit. As previously mentioned, the Jaguars are doing total war now, so they kill down pilots, they destroy command centers, and they destroy like medical trucks and stuff like that. So they're all aware that this is their final fight, and they're just struggling desperately to survive. They're also committing Bondsref rather than being captured, so they're killing themselves in their cockpits before they go out. All right, so the players are going to be joining the Battle of the Duan Swamps. A beleaguered Northwind Highlanders has 2 companies of the 10th Lyran Guards, aka Prince Victor Steiner Davian's Ravenants. They're going to land and hold the line. Both companies are essentially functionally destroyed with like 2 pilots walking away. But they do manage to hold off the pursuant forces, the Jaguar's Heart, and some other units from overtaking the Northwind Highlanders. This gives the Highlanders time to rally. Another thing I should mention is that I think Task Force Serpent started with 10 regiments and assorted forces and ends up with 2, which means they take 80% casualties, which is massive. I mean, 80% casualty is way beyond the time where someone routs right? That's like everybody's dead. So the far left wing of this is going to be a guy called Archer Cristofori, and he's a captain, I think, at this time, or maybe a major. The far right wing is going to be our player characters. They're going to be a single lance with support forces being dropped in the swamp. So my go-to here is going to be a setup that the fortress dropship and all the other dropships that the unit has are too heavy to land in the swamp, and the forces will need to land behind the swamp and let the Highlanders come to them. Because our local pilot, Melissa, is such an incredible hotshot, aka Prince, she is going to hover over the swamp and drop the lance. Well, it's the whole company, but it's basically a lance of mechs, the catapult, the artillery vehicles, and launch its fighters, and then she is also going to retreat. And that company's job is to hold the line. So the entire fight, the only objective is to prevent any mechs from getting past them. Because I don't know whether this is going to be the finale of the show or not, I'm pretty much just going to throw the book at the players. I think that's how it's going to be. I honestly can't at this point tell whether or not how much I can throw at the players, like, legitimately, because edge and plot points completely overshadow my ability to do anything. Like Pondo's jumping jack ability makes it so that for him, jumping into woods constantly works out great and has very small penalties for him, but has a huge benefit. Like, that's bad. So it should be noted that all the pilots that they'll be facing are going to be much better than normal. We're talking 1-2 or 2-2, 2-3s. So let me just write that down. We have a map that was given to us by Dunamis Insidious. It is called Harvest Lake, I think. Should be very, very big. I'm worried that Cotton won't be able to load it on her computer, because I know that's happened in the past to some people. Well, while that's loading, let me write down what I want. I absolutely want an elemental battle taxi. So this means I need a dasher, aka a fire moth, loaded with 5 elementals. Now this is really struggling. I have a pretty good computer too. Finally load. Seems like it. Okay. This is the player side of the map. This is the aggressor side of the map. Right. There's an indication that the enemy is attempting to head southernly in this case. I guess I should say this is west. All right, now let's pull all the basics in. Objects, accessories, bags. Going straight up rather than side to side. That now? Weird. That's the old prep, which isn't going to work for me. This might actually have to reload everything. Well, that was a mistake. So if you guys have clan mechs, specifically Smoke Jaguar base, but really any clan mechs, maybe something we haven't seen that you want to see in this battle, let me know. For sure we're going to be seeing Mad Dog. We're going to be seeing Timberwolf, Dasher as a battle taxi. Stone Rhino. Yet? No, not even. So it should be noted, as long as people keep from spoiling this, I'll be doing Battletech Oath of Endosteel prep tomorrow night. A lot of GM preps. Last night we did Cyberpunk 2020. All right, we're back. What the hell is happening there? Like it's trying to auto raise over things. Correctly. I'm going to do a thing now, so I don't have to do it later. I'm saving the camera positions so that in game I can camera. I can do something like this. Fancy, it'll automatically swivel and all that stuff, and so you get a good look at the battlefield from multiple angles and kind of get an idea of what's going on. All right, so I have to tell you, for the clans, getting in these water hexes is probably not going to be a bad deal. However, their orders are specifically to make it to the map edge, so they're going to try to just push through in a straight line. They will, however, be stopping to kill pilots and stuff like that. You know, just little things, stuff like that. So let's get a couple of mechs on the battlefield. We have the sheet. Now, like I said, I'm going to be using elementals, and I'm going to be using battle taxis. And I don't know the rules for those, but fortunately GrimdarkJames is in the game, and he'll be able to help me get that done. So the other thing I should mention, is that I'm going to be offering a spot for Eric Vulgaris and Glimo to join us as guest stars for this battle, which will probably last 3 to 4 sessions, maybe even more. I'm probably going to be throwing 15 to 20 mechs at the players. I'm counting an elemental pack as a mech in that. So go ahead and get record sheets. And record sheets. Salt, heavy. Pretty much a charcuterie board of all the classic selections. Stone Rhino Prime. I'm gonna want Dire Wolf. Probably make a custom Dire Wolf just for this battle. Write that down. Finally, actually, let's say 2 custom Dire Wolves. That way I can have PPC carrier Dire Wolf and really fucking nasty dual AC 20. I want a Dire Wolf that's going to be able to fight Rad's mech at close range. Not specifically like a punching mech, but like a really fucking horrifyingly nasty. What else? Warhawk. Warhammer 2C probably isn't terrible. Yeah, we'll keep it. Definitely not going in the primary lance, however. That's going to be reserved. Gargoyle. Right here. That is a terrible setup. This is absolutely fucking awful. Gargoyles. Fast Omni-Mech. Gargoyle A is 2 ERPPCs, large pulse laser. Gargoyle C is what. Medium range combat. And it's got anti-personnel pods specifically to kill pilots and stuff. Take a look at it. Four ERPPCs and an LRM-10 is pretty strong. I get like a LRM launcher. Let's go with the Warhawk A. Prime. And do they have the Kraken 3? That way I have someone who can compete with long-range firepower. They're up here. Now, there are new record sheets available. I don't know a lot about them. Look interesting. I'll have to wait for Dunamis to tell me how they work. That sounds like I'm dodging responsibility. I call it distributing responsibility. I could not do this show without several members of the audience's help. Got us to this point. Good now. So I will continue to rely on their help to get this done. And all of them. Rhino, double Gauss rifle. That's going to be a long-range brawler. The prime direwolf, which we're going to leave intact, is going to be a long-range brawler. I say brawler, but that's a terrible terminology. Here's our close-range guy, who's probably going to be leading the pack in terms of speed. He's faster than everybody else. Masakari can fight really any range, but long range works, and the Kraken will probably be hanging in the back. So maybe let's reorganize these people by their range. That way I know what they're doing. I go to do this. Firewall can get to me. Now I'm gonna, maybe not tonight, but at some point I'm gonna have to sit down and figure out what kind of previous battle damage some of these mechs are going to have. And these mechs are not going to be coming in first. Not going to be the first wave. That would be lighter mechs will be showing up first. So let's talk about something like Timberwolf, Mad Dog, Stormcrow, other medium or heavy, fast heavy types. Ape shit. Wrong. Wait. Oh, you know, as long as I'm there, maybe let's pull a Shadow Cat out. Not letting me move it sideways. It's really weird. Okay, Mask is gonna make it the guy at the front. 12 run is really good, and a Gauss rifle is gonna let them engage at the kind of range that I need in order to start picking off whoever's in front. So the Shadow Cat Prime is gonna be the lead battle mech of Soundwave. How's it going? Jokin. Next, we're talking Mad Dog. Now, if there was ever a time that it would be a great idea to pull off the 5 Mad Cats, this would have been it. I wanted to personally fight that Mad Dog battle, but I gave it to James, and then he didn't seem happy about it. All right, so between the Mad Dog and the Mad Cat, or as I should say, the Vulture, the Mad Dog and the Timberwolf, we're looking at a lot of long-range missile firepower here. Bad, not bad. We should be throwing in a Thor. Good Thor configs, so let's take a look. That primary configuration ain't bad. Talk about A. For A. Gonna get me to where I want to be. Gonna have pretty decent long-range firepower, but also be very good at close range. And so specifically this lance, probably the Mad Dog and the Timberwolf and the Summoner will all have battle damage or some ammunition marked off. I'm not going to work on that tonight. Got 2, 3, 4 weeks before this will be relevant. But just know that I want the battle to simulate the last survivors of a dying people's desperately attempting to keep it together. I mean, already what I'm throwing at them with 2-2 or 1-1, 1-2 pilots is going to be pretty heavy to overcome. They're going to run out of ag ammunition pretty quickly, which in the past has served them very well. Now that's a thought, something that I might want to be considering. Naga might be my last chance to ever use one. I deleted those. I really should have double checked. These are Mad Cat. Okay. Here we're going to want the elemental pack and lights. So we want the Dasher, Fire Moth, go real. Elementals are going to be attached to that particular mech to get them into immediate combat with the players and mess them up. Probably use a selection of the usual group. Kit Foxes, always a pleasure. Hard to deny their worth. Good Kit Fox. What the one with the A has the Gauss rifle. Yeah. Should note that a new star arrives every 5 turns. So it normally takes the players somewhere between 6 to 8 turns to wrap up a battle. So by the time, with this mass distance, by the time the first star arrives and into combat range, the fast star that I'm making now will be arriving, and then the larger assault star. So they're going to be pretty well bogged down fighting something like 10 mechs before the assaults even show up to do some big daddy shit. Which is right where I want this to be. Like, will this be a tragic overrun monstrous-ism, or will the players once again completely and utterly destroy everything? I don't know. Vixen is a pretty interesting mech. Opposed to putting one of those map. Vixen 1. Alright, well, let's look at their configurations. Vixen 2 ain't bad. It's pretty much the regular Vixen, but with an ERPPC. A Euler. Not the Euler. A Puma. Fucking dual ERPPCs. Still need one more clan light mech. Preferably an Omni mech. What are we looking at here? Fenris. That could be interesting. Fenris C. Our commander of the So Fenris C has numerous missiles. How did that go? All tied to Artemis 4 configurations. It's really not super great, but by the time it gets into combat, I assume that there might be areas of someone's mech that are missing armor, and that something like this could hang out at long range, spit out hot fire, and run around in circles. Very hard to counteract, and just try to go for critical hits. Probably have ammo cards for all these. Maybe the longest battle I've ever done, and there's a more than good chance it's the longest battle we'll ever do. Pretty unlikely that mech is going to run out of machine gun ammo. Folks at home normally get like 200. Really difficult to run out. So my initial strategy, I have taken to not bothering to try to guess player strategies, although there is a chance I could predict where GrimdarkJames is going to end up. Seems like he wants to stay in a location where he can abuse his oblique attacker powers in every battle. Perfectly fine. He's going to want to remain in a location with a lot of woods, so I think it's fair to say that something like over here, where he's going to be within 20 hexes. Maybe not. Might remain somewhere like anywhere he can gain a lot of cover. Then players might try to play it all the way at the back end, in which case there's a lot more places you could physically place him, something like this hole or behind this over here. So Star 1 is going to show up. Shadowcat, Ryukin, they're going to split up. The two of them are going to go flank. One goes this side, one goes this side. The other mechs come right down this corridor right here. So they try to walk as little water as possible. Probably not this exact corridor, because this is not good. They're probably going to try to shoot through here. That's not terrible. Especially if they can somehow avoid the swamp. If we can chart a path here, that would make sense. Some way to avoid depths, but also the swamp. I think it's going to be pretty tough. He did a very good job. Really no place that a non-jumping mech can get through here. So let's say any non-jumping mechs are going to try to pick a side where they can be. Take a look at what these guys got. This is a jumper. This isn't. No other jumpers in lane. Okay. All right. So Thor goes center with the scouting Shadowcat. Everyone else takes a different path. Lance 1, they're gonna go swoop. The jumpers go here, everybody else breaks off and in good formation goes here. They're gonna try to meet up while the center people fire outwardly in these directions, kind of securing a beachhead. Then they're gonna come back together here and all move together towards the exit. Their plan is to kill the North 1 Highlanders. They don't really care about the players' Battlemechs. They want to move as quickly as possible in a good formation and make it to the edge of the map so that they can complete their murdering. They mad AF. Number 2 attack. Dasher can get mixed up. Some of these mechs are faster than others. I think that these mechs are going to try to reinforce. They do not have jumping, so I think it's strong to say that they're going to try to reinforce the same direction. Stay in formation to start off with, and then once they get into long range, the fast close range mechs are going to break formation and run in as quickly as possible, drop off those elementals, preferably somewhere behind our players. I mean, being able to cover 20 hexes essentially covers the range. I think you have to be standing still to offload the elementals. So that's a pretty big deal. So something like hiding in these woods patches over here would be premium quality for that. If we could get the Fire Moth over here in a universe where it's safe to drop off here, that would be great, as long as the elementals will be close enough to engage the enemy mechs. This Assault Star is just going to run down this side of the map. They have a little bit of jumping power, but they're not fast. Hitting the enemy from both sides. So while they're fighting over here, while the players are fighting over here, having another group come over here could force them to split their forces. That sounds exactly like something Pondo and James would talk about specifically, is to send someone over there to like spoil the enemy, slow them down just a little bit, engage them in the longest range combat. So at the very least, you can buy time for the first part of the group to come over. So we're gonna have one more star. It's gonna be my just in case. If all of this has really not put a dent in the players, I'm gonna have a 2C star ready to go. Oh, this is not landing where I want it to go. All right, Warhammer, Shadowhawk, probably Hunchback 2C. So I do love a good Hunchback 2C. Take a look at lights, see if we found a good light 2C mech to throw up here. Urban mech 2C. Oh, certainly. Oh, Jenner, for sure. I could throw. I don't need to build these out quite yet. And we need to turn off transparency for all. Well, that didn't work. Some of these mechs I'm not gonna need. Token. Trying to pick up here are Rhino, head into the X. HD. Nope, that's not it either. Wow. Timberwolf. Hawk, Shadowcat, Dog, Kit Fox, Shanner. Out. Spirit, Hunchback 2C. Summoner. No, I think I'm gonna. Okay, let's get some Pro. Shadow Cat. Hit Fox. These are the just in case things are going too well. Notice I haven't even made record. Fenris. Direwolf. Hit Fox. Okay, so I back in. Really should have probably been a summoner pack that I missed. Doubt that it has the file. Fire Moth, maybe? Oh. I might even want to consider using a Dasher A and throwing a Naga with Tag. over that. Well, friends, now we're down to the boring brass tacks part. Script. You know what those two C-Mechs will be good for? If Eric and Glimo show up as guest stars, definitely going to be needing a little bit more to take them on. I think the final thing I'll be doing is getting the swamp rules for those bog hexes. Sure, those are on the table so we know how terrible it is to step into that stuff. Okay. That go. Felt like a huge win. Tactical operations. I need to find bog. No mud. Exactly what I want. Swamp. Bog down rolls. Okay. This is about 75% of the preparation. I need to do the battle. I'd still need to simulate battle damage on Premier Star, the one that's coming out first, and to set up their record sheets correctly so that they have the right amount of armor. But that's a boring task for another. Definitely don't need to do stream. I think this about covers it. Wow, this is considerably larger than a normal. I asked for though. Check S for final battle. Well, friends, thanks for joining me. I'm gonna find someone to pass you off to. Hopefully you learned something or had some questions answered. Have a good night.